China, Minsk aircraft carrier on fire and badly damaged. The CCP's rush to build amphibious ships has raised concerns about an attack on Taiwan. China supermarket chains' $4.5 billion loss collapsed, coinciding with business bankruptcy wave. At around 4 p.m. on Friday, August 16th, a fire broke out on the aircraft carrier Minsk, which China purchased from the Soviet Union. The carrier was anchored in Nantong City, Jiangsu Province on the Yangtze River. According to a report by Doot News, a video shot by a Nantong citizen near the scene on the 17th showed that the fire had been extinguished, but the radar and communication equipment on the aircraft carrier's island were almost completely destroyed, and the 3-story navigation bridge had disappeared. A witness in the video said, "It's over, it's over. This aircraft carrier is on fire to the point of collapse. There seem to be electric lights on the deck, and there seem to be people on it." The video shows that initially, thick smoke was rising from below the Minsk. After nightfall, the fire gradually spread upwards, and part of the structure was charred and collapsed. The video also showed many staff members on the aircraft carrier's deck suspected of handling follow-up work from the fire. Temporary tents were set up on the shore where the aircraft carrier was docked. According to the Central News Agency, the Minsk was commissioned in 1978 and was once the main aircraft carrier of the Soviet Navy. It was the second ship of the Kiev-class aircraft carriers. The ship could carry vertical short takeoff and landing fighters at the time, and was also equipped with anti-ship, air defense, all-round anti-submarine, and powerful strike weapon systems. The Chinese Communist government had originally planned to turn the Minsk into a military training and education base, opening it to the public in October to showcase its military scale and demonstrate China's military and national defense capabilities. However, the fire has thwarted this plan. Authorities confirmed that no one was injured in the fire. The exact situation and cause of this major fire are currently unknown. The CCP's rush to build amphibious ships has raised concerns about an attack on Taiwan. Reuters reported on August 9th that the construction of the Type 076 amphibious assault ship once again reminds the world of the alarming speed of Beijing's military buildup. It also heightens concerns that Beijing is actively preparing for war and may be planning to invade Taiwan. According to a report released by the U.S. think tank, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, on August 1st, new satellite images show that the first Type 076 amphibious assault ship, the so-called Yulan class, is being rapidly built at the Changxing Island shipbuilding base in Shanghai, and may be launched as early as the first half of next year. The Type 076 amphibious assault ship is the latest amphibious combat vessel developed by the Chinese Navy. The latest images provided by the private satellite company Maxar show that the ship is about 263 meters long and 43 meters wide, slightly smaller than the Nimitz class or Ford class aircraft carriers, but significantly larger than the U.S. America class assault ship. Mark, the host of the military channel Mark Time and Space, stated, "The 076 amphibious assault ship that the Chinese Communist Party is currently building is larger than the latest America-class amphibious assault ship of the U.S. military. More importantly, it can carry more personnel. Generally, the current amphibious landing ships of the Chinese Communist Party can only carry about 10,000 troops, which is far from sufficient for a successful landing in Taiwan. Based on U.S. military experience, an attacker needs more than 3 times the number of troops as the defender to succeed in a landing operation." The 076 ship is equipped with an electromagnetic catapult on the front deck. Satellite photos show that its catapult's reserved track is about 130 meters long, significantly longer than the 108 meters on the Fujin ship. Mark added, Because the CCP does not have vertical takeoff and landing fighters, their expectation is that the 076 would function as a helicopter amphibious assault ship similar to those used by the U.S. military, enabling three-dimensional landing operations with helicopters and landing craft. So, the CCP's goal is to provide enough troops to support such landing operations. U.S. Air Force General Minihan believes that the CCP may attack Taiwan in 2025, potentially leading to war with the United States. Davidson, the former commander of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, predicts that the CCP will attack Taiwan in 2027. Although the CCP has never admitted to having a timeline for attacking Taiwan, Reuters noted that its rapid shipbuilding has increased concerns that Beijing is actively preparing for war and planning to invade Taiwan. Mark noted, in the past, the Chinese Communist Party mainly relied on missiles to threaten the U.S. military. The U.S. has fully demonstrated its missile defense capabilities through actual combat. So, the Chinese Communist Party's strategy is no longer effective. Now, it is essentially benchmarking with the U.S. military, learning from it. Although the number of Chinese warships has surpassed that of the U.S. Navy, there is still a significant gap in quality and total tonnage. Mark also mentioned that the Chinese Navy lacks actual combat experience. Although it has the capability to build ships quickly, factors such as weapons support, personnel training, and equipment maintenance could become constraints. According to CSIS's recent war game simulation of a Chinese invasion of Taiwan, the results showed that China lost 52 major surface ships, while the United States lost 7 to 10 ships. Su Ziyun, director of the Strategic and Resource Institute of Taiwan's National Defense and Security Research Institute, commented, "I believe the CCP is an authoritarian regime with the potential to influence global security, comparable to the Nazis and the former Soviet Union. It is no longer just a regional security issue. Whether through its intercontinental missiles or its increasingly large naval fleet, it could change the future world order." In this context, democratic countries need to recognize that only strength can curb the consequences of the CCP's export of authoritarianism. The United States has also taken corresponding measures against the CCP's massive shipbuilding capabilities. On one hand, it seeks assistance from allies in Japan and South Korea to repair warships in those countries. On the other hand, it is vigorously developing unmanned ships and submarines to reduce personnel needs. China supermarket chain's $4.5 billion loss collapsed, coinciding with business bankruptcy wave.
10,900 Chinese chip companies vanished, up nearly 90% from last year. As of December 11, 2023, China has seen a staggering 10,900 chip companies shut down or have their registrations revoked by the industrial and commercial authorities. That's an average of over 31 chip enterprises closing down or having their registrations revoked every single day. In the past 5 years alone, more than 22,000 chip-related businesses have faced closure or revocation. According to data from Oriental Wealth Choice, as of November 1st, 151 semiconductor-listed companies have disclosed their third-quarter reports for 2023, with a total operating income of approximately 352.3 billion yuan, almost flat compared to the same period last year. However, their combined net profit attributable to shareholders has plummeted by about 54% to around 19.3 billion yuan. Shockingly, out of these 151 listed semiconductor companies, a staggering 111 have seen their net profits plummet year-on-year, accounting for approximately 74% of the total. For instance, in October, AI chip design company Cambricon released its third-quarter financial report, revealing a staggering 66.15% year-on-year drop in operating income to 31.34 million yuan, with a net loss attributable to shareholders of a whopping 263 million yuan. From January to September 2023, Cambricon's revenue plummeted by 44.84% year-on-year to 146 million yuan, with a net loss of 808 million yuan. Furthermore, data shared by Professor Wei Xiaojun, director of the China Semiconductor Industry Association's Integrated Circuit Design Branch at ICAD 2023, indicates that there are a total of 3,243 chip design enterprises in China, with a shocking 55% of them generating less than 10 million yuan in sales revenue. Among China's semiconductor-listed companies, 30% are in the red, with an overall net profit decline of about 54% and a staggering 74% of them witnessing a decline in net profit. Experts predict that the majority of Chinese chip design companies will face massive losses in 2023 due to severe inventory backlog, saturated industry supply, and the inevitable devaluation of stock due to the flawed economic development policies of the Chinese Communist Party. Hitting a staggering 4.5 billion renminbi loss, Chinese supermarket chains collapsed. In a shocking turn of events, renowned supermarket chains Renrenal, Bubugeo, and Yonghui superstores have all reported staggering losses, sending shockwaves through the market. On January 30, 2024, the well-established Shenzhen supermarket chain Renrenal issued a notice stating that 2023 net loss of 470 to 520 million yuan, compared to 507 million yuan in the previous year. Renrenal cited various external and internal factors for declining revenue and underperformance. Originating from Shenzhen, Guangdong, Renrenal once rivaled major foreign giants like Carrefour and Walmart. Despite going public in 2010 with over 10 billion yuan in annual revenue and 100-plus stores nationwide, Renrenal faced financial struggles since its first loss in 2012. This marks Renrenal's third consecutive warning of delisting due to losses, compounded by a rising asset-liability ratio of 108.7% by the end of the third quarter of 2023. Following suit, Hunan's leading retail enterprise, Bubugeo, released an announcement estimating a loss of 1.32 to 1.96 billion yuan attributable to shareholders of the listed company in 2023. At the same time, the company still faced the risk of bankruptcy due to the failure of restructuring as declared by the court. Specifically, Bubugeo anticipates a net loss between 1.32 billion and 1.96 billion yuan, marking a decrease of 22.94% to 48.11% compared to the previous year. The company attributed these losses to intensified industry competition and a liquidity crisis, resulting in operational challenges. Bubugeo responded by adjusting its strategy, optimizing store operations, and closing unprofitable outlets, incurring significant expenses. Additionally, the liquidity crisis impacted Nanjing department stores' performance, prompting concerns about goodwill impairment. The company expects a decline in the overall fair value of investment properties, subject to evaluation and audit by appointed agencies. Yonghui Superstores, another heavyweight in the supermarket industry, was not spared from the financial turmoil. Revealing a net loss of 1.34 billion yuan for 2023, the company experienced a consecutive decline in profitability, with losses totaling 4.495 billion yuan in 2021 and 3 billion yuan in 2022. Faced with relentless competitive pressures and a deteriorating economic landscape, Yonghui Superstores struggled to adapt, resorting to impairment tests on long-term assets as domestic stock prices plummeted. The unfolding crisis has cast a shadow over the future of these once thriving supermarket giants. As uncertainties loom large, investors and industry analysts alike are left questioning the effectiveness of their strategies and the viability of their operations in the tumultuous retail landscape. $200 million job losses stem from China's small business bankruptcy wave. China is teetering on the edge of an economic abyss, as not only the titans of real estate and finance face financial ruin, but also a tsunami of small and micro enterprises stares down the barrel of closure, putting a staggering 180 million jobs on the line. Shocking figures reveal that in the first half of 2023 alone, 460,000 companies shuttered their doors, 3.1 million solo ventures vanished into thin air, and a staggering 3.73 million eateries closed up shop, leaving a trail of economic devastation in their wake. With 200 million people out of work, the nation is on the brink of an unprecedented crisis. A recent report from the China Institute for Inclusive Finance paints a grim picture of the financial health of small and micro enterprises. More than a third of surveyed businesses confess to dire financial straits, with regions like Henan and Shanxi particularly hard hit. Meanwhile, a gaping disparity in financial stability plagues enterprises in Guangxi and Chongqing. With a staggering 80% of small businesses drowning in overdue payments, the pressure on cash flow is reaching a breaking point. As debts pile up, the specter of bankruptcy looms large, threatening to send shockwaves through the economy and plunge 180 million people into joblessness. On a global scale, small and micro enterprises are the lifeblood of economies, contributing a lion's share of employment and GDP. In China, they provide a whopping 70% of all jobs. Yet, these enterprises lack the resilience of their larger counterparts, grappling with financing woes and a lack of technological edge. Should over 80% of them continue to face payment delays, the fallout could be catastrophic, with nearly 200 million livelihoods hanging in the balance. It's a grim reality, with a quarter of small businesses already on the brink of collapse. As China's stock and real estate markets spiral downward, investor confidence plummets to new lows. Even in major cities like Guangzhou and Shanghai, where purchase restrictions were lifted, December's sales plummeted by a staggering 17.1% year-on-year. This freefall underscores a widespread loss of faith in China's economic prospects, both at home and abroad. With banks tightening their grip on loans to small businesses, and no relief in sight, the impending wave of closures and bankruptcies seems inevitable. Adding fuel to the fire, the closure of small and micro enterprises threatens to send shockwaves through the economy, disrupting supply chains and driving up prices. The ripple effect will reverberate far and wide, inflicting further misery on already beleaguered citizens and exacerbating economic woes. Chinese illusion of national trend free house giveaways, a deceptive reality. In recent times, there has been a surge in the real estate market with a trend of giving away houses for free. Several homeowners have come forward offering to transfer their properties for the remaining amount of their mortgage loans. Take Fang Qing from Zihui City, Xiaoqing, for instance. Her property, currently valued at 470,000 yuan, is roughly equivalent to her outstanding mortgage balance. While this may appear to offer buyers a chance to acquire the property at a discounted rate, the actual implications of such transactions may not be as advantageous as they seem. Who's willing to pay off my mortgage? I'll give the house away for free to whoever does, and you didn't hear it wrong. In the past few days, there's been a screenshot from an owners group, and the chat messages in it say just that. This, you see, is a real thing, not just spreading negativity unintentionally. I remember back then many new property projects required reservations and were locked in specific units. This owner even said in the group that whoever wants it can have it, with unconditional cooperation for notarization and transfer, and they'll even cover the first month's mortgage payment for you. It's not hard to see that this owner bought the house in Huizhou during the peak of the real estate market. Now, the house should be worth around 600,000 yuan, but with mortgage rates dropping, they're out almost 400,000 yuan. For ordinary folks, that's catastrophic. They're even willing to cover the first month's payment for the new owner. Is this desperation due to a bad market or just a temporary slump? Behind the trend of free house giveaways, there are hidden risks. Firstly, owners may be facing financial difficulties and debt problems, potentially leading to property seizure or foreclosure before transfer. Secondly, if property prices continue to fall, buyers may face even greater economic losses. Furthermore, this type of transaction may involve high loan amounts and interest rates, which may not truly benefit buyers. On the surface, buyers may think they are getting a property at a relatively low price, but this could come with high loan interest, potential legal disputes, and even risks of the property's value decreasing. Especially for investors who were previously speculating in the property market, the current environment is significantly different. The uncertainty of property prices, changes in market supply and demand, and policy adjustments all serve as reminders to approach the real estate market with caution. 20 million unfinished homes drive tens of millions in China to tears. A report recently released by Nomura Securities points out the staggering scale of unfinished pre-sale housing in China, estimating around 20 million units of unfinished homes across China, left by Evergrande and other failed developers. This figure is equivalent to approximately 20 times the size of China's largest private real estate developer, Country Garden Holdings. The total funding gap for completing those projects stood at around $446 billion, the report estimated. Experts warn that this situation could have a significant impact on both society and the economy, with some criticizing the Chinese government's response as a slow and ineffective remedy, suggesting that pouring more resources into the issue may yield limited results and fail to prevent a collapse in the real estate market. Taiwanese financial expert Huang Shitsong recently analyzed that the inability to complete these 20 million housing units could have a significant impact on both society and the economy. This is a massive quantity, and previously, Beijing hoped that companies like Country Garden or Evergrande could at least deliver completed housing units on schedule. Recently, some industry insiders in China have reported online that property prices in Shenzhen have experienced a stampede-style collapse. In some areas, such as the central district of Bao'an, the price of commercial housing has plummeted from over 4.2 million yuan to 1.85 million yuan, a drop of over 55%, while other areas have experienced declines of around 40%. Previously, Bloomberg reported, citing sources, that the central bank is set to launch the 3 major projects this month, with specific implementation plans. This initiative aims to inject at least 1 trillion yuan of low-interest funds into policy banks in stages through measures such as mortgage supplementary loans, PSL, and special loans to stabilize the sluggish real estate market. The so-called 3 major projects include affordable housing, urban village renovation, and dual-use infrastructure in urban areas. American economist Davey J. Wong, authorized by Davey J. Wong, analyzed the current situation differently. Because there is currently an oversupply of real estate, Wong suggests that if this trillion yuan were allocated solely to building affordable housing, urban village renovations, and public facilities, it may not be as effective. Instead, Wong believes that the funds should be used to acquire some developers or assist them in completing unfinished buildings. Alternatively, providing housing subsidies to residents in the form of monetary assistance for purchasing or renting homes might be more effective than constructing new housing units, given the oversupply in the market. First time in 17 years, China no longer the U.S.'s top importer. According to a report by Nikkei Asia on the 10th, China has for the first time in 17 years lost its position as the top importer to the United States. This shift is attributed to a decrease of at least 20% in imports from China to the United States from January to November 2023 compared to the same period 2 years prior. Mexico is likely to replace China as the primary importer for the United States in 2023, reflecting a trend of increased trade with friendly nations and reduced reliance on China. Last July, after the General Administration of Customs of China released monthly import and export figures, several Chinese financial media outlets pointed out that China was no longer the largest importer for the United States. According to Nikkei Asia, based on trade statistics from the U.S. Department of Commerce, China has fallen below the top spot in annual share for the first time since 2006. From January to November 2023, China accounted for only 13.9% of total imports to the United States, the lowest level since 2004. Peak imports from China to the United States occurred around 2017, exceeding 21%, creating a significant gap compared to other countries. Analysts attribute this change to the initiation of the U.S.-China trade war in 2018, leading to a continuous decline in trade volume between the two countries, thus removing China from its position as the largest trading partner of the United States. By 2020, with the outbreak of the global pandemic, China resumed production ahead of other countries, once again becoming the largest trading partner of the United States. However, as the United States strengthened efforts to reduce dependency on China and adjusted global supply chains following the pandemic, imports from China decreased once again. Trends are emerging in categories such as electronics, which previously heavily relied on imports from China, shifting towards other countries. For instance, imports of smartphones from China decreased by 10% year-on-year from January to November, while imports from India increased fivefold. Similarly, imports of laptops from China decreased by 30%, with imports from Vietnam quadrupling. Although still relatively small in scale, procurement from Southeast Asia is rapidly increasing. This shift is partly driven by U.S. government policies. the Biden administration is promoting the establishment of supply chains with friendly shores among allied nations. Additionally, tariffs imposed by the Trump administration on Chinese products worth $370 billion continue to be enforced. Against a backdrop of geopolitical risks, global companies are adopting the China Plus One strategy to avoid excessive reliance on China. Analysts predict that the impact of this trend will persist in the long term, with Neil Graham stating that it may take several years for the China Plus One strategy to significantly affect U.S. import statistics.